America is a banana republic. El Presidente Donald Trump is the gringo version of brutal and corrupt dictators foisted on Latin American countries by their oligarchs and Yankee imperialists. Written by Chris Hedges for the Chris Hedges Report, chrishedges.substack.com. Read by Eunice Wong. El Presidente Trump is cast in the mold of all tin-pot Latin American despots who terrorize their populations, surround themselves with sycophants, goons, and crooks, and enrich themselves. Trump and his family have amassed more than $1.8 billion in cash and gifts from leveraging the presidency, while erecting tawdry monuments to themselves. Trujillo on earth, God in heaven, was posted by state order in churches during the 31-year reign of Rafael Leonidas Trujillo in the Dominican Republic. His supporters, like Trump's, nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump's con artist pastor, Paula White Cain, offered an updated version of Trujillo's self-deification when she warned, "To say no to President Trump would be saying no to God." Trump is the gringo version of Anastasio Tachito Somoza in Nicaragua, or Haiti's François Papadoc Duvalier, who amended the Constitution to have himself anointed President for life. One of the most celebrated images of the Haitian dictator's long rule shows Jesus Christ with a hand on the shoulder of a seated Papadoc with the caption, "I have chosen him." ICE thugs are the incubus of Papadoc's dreaded 15,000-strong Tonton Macoute. His secret police who indiscriminately detained, beat, tortured, jailed, or killed 30,000 to 60,000 of Duvalier's opponents, and which, along with the Presidential Guard, consumed half the state budget. El Presidente Trump is Venezuela's Juan Vicente Gomez, who looted the nation to make himself the wealthiest man in the country and disdained public education to, in the words of the scholar Paloma Grifero Pedemonte, keep the people ignorant and docile. El Presidente, in every dictatorship, follows the same playbook. It is a grotesque opera buffa. No encomium is too outrageous, no bribe too small, no violation of civil liberties too extreme, no stupidity too absurd. All dissent, no matter how tepid, is treason. Executive orders, budget cuts, gerrymandering, the seizure of polling stations and voting machines, the abolition of mail-in balloting, the overseeing of the vote count, and the purging of voter rolls ensure fixed election results. Institutions, from the press to the universities, kneel down before the idiocy of El Presidente. Legislatures are obsequious echo chambers for El Presidente's whims and self-delusions. It's a world of magical realism, where fantasy replaces reality, mythology replaces history, the immoral is moral, tyranny is democracy, and lies are true. It's not only violence and intimidation that keep El Presidente in power. It's the stupefying inversion of reality, the daily denial of what we perceive, and its replacement by disorienting fictions that keep us off balance. This, combined with state-induced fear, turns countries into open-air prisons. Human consciousness is bombarded until it's broken and becomes a well-oiled cog in the vast carceral machine. The warped psychology of El Presidente Trump is captured by Miguel Ángel Asturias in his novel El Señor Presidente, inspired by the dictatorship of Manuel Estrada Cabrera, who ruled Guatemala for 22 years, Gabriel Garcia Marquez's The Autumn of the Patriarch, Julia Alvarez's In the Time of the Butterflies, and Mario Vargas Llosa's The Feast of the Goat and Conversation in the Cathedral. These novels offer better insight into where we're headed than most tomes on U.S. politics. Everything is for sale here, writes Julia Alvarez in her novel. Everything but your freedom. Dictators, hermetically sealed in the cloying adulation of court life, swiftly lose touch with reality. Conspiracy theories, quack science, bizarre beliefs, and superstitions take the place of evidence and facts. Sociopathic, incapable of empathy or remorse, and given to describing the world in vulgarities and childish sentimentality, dictators cannot distinguish between good and evil. They wield power solely for how it makes them feel. If they feel good, it's good. If they feel bad, it's bad. L'État, c'est moi. The chief qualification of a mass leader has become unending infallibility, Hannah Arendt writes in The Origins of Totalitarianism. He can never admit an error. Mass leaders in power have one concern, which overrules all utilitarian considerations: to make their predictions come true. The dictator of El Salvador in the 1930s, General Maximiliano Hernández Martínez, who passed a series of laws that restricted Asian, Arab, and Black immigration, and who ordered the massacre of an estimated 30,000 peasants in the wake of an abortive uprising in January 1932, was convinced sunlight cast through colored bottles cured illnesses. In the midst of a smallpox epidemic, he ordered colored lights to be hung throughout the capital, San Salvador. When his youngest son had appendicitis, he brushed aside doctors to try his colored lights cure, which resulted in his son's death. He turned down a donation of rubber sandals for the country's schoolchildren, announcing, "It is good for children to go barefoot. That way they better receive the beneficial effluvia of the planet, the vibrations of the earth. Plants and animals do not wear shoes." El Presidente Trump is cut from this vein. He doesn't exercise because he insists the human body resembles a battery with a finite amount of energy. He urged the public, during the COVID-19 crisis, to inject disinfectant into themselves and irradiate with ultraviolet light. He warned pregnant women not to take Tylenol during a press conference where he babbled incoherently, suggesting it causes autism. He dismissed the climate crisis, tweeting, "The concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive," only to later say he was joking, while claiming that it'll change back again. The noise of wind turbines, he suggested, causes cancer. Former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he mused, may be the secret son of Fidel Castro. Dictators wallow in kitsch. Kitsch requires zero intellectual investment. It glorifies the state and the cult leader. It celebrates a fantasy world of virtuous rulers, a happy, adoring population, and idealized portraits of the citizens. In the case of Trump, this means white citizens. It glitters and sparkles, like the garish gold trophies and vases lined up on the mantelpiece in the Oval Office that have been matched by equally tasteless gold coasters with Trump's name on them. It snuffs out culture. The National Symphony Orchestra at the Kennedy Center now opens all its performances with the national anthem. Trump, who appointed himself the new chairman of the center, posted, "No more drag shows or other anti-American propaganda." This year's season at the Kennedy Center, where the name Donald J. Trump has been etched into the marble of the Hall of States, opened with The Sound of Music. The Trump-appointed interim president of the Kennedy Center, Richard Grenell, hopes to make the center's programming more like Paula Abdul. Milan Kundera described kitsch as an aesthetic in which shit is denied and everyone acts as though it does not exist, adding that it is a folding screen set up to curtain off death. Trujillo raped the wives of his associates, ministers, and generals, along with courtesans and young girls. Trump, who was a close friend of pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, has been accused of rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment by at least 24 women. Julie Brown, in her book Perversion of Justice, The Jeffrey Epstein Story, writes that an anonymous woman, using the pseudonym Kate Johnson, filed a civil complaint in federal court in California in 2016, alleging she was raped by Trump and Epstein, when she was 13, over a 4-month period from June to September 1994. "I loudly pleaded with defendant Trump to stop," she said in the lawsuit. "Trump responded to my pleas by violently striking me in the face with his open hand and screaming that he could do whatever he wanted." Johnson said she met Trump at one of Epstein's underage sex parties at his New York mansion. She says she was forced to have sex with Trump several times, including once with another girl, 12 years old, whom she labeled Marie Doe. Trump demanded oral sex and afterward pushed both minors away while angrily berating them for the poor quality of their sexual performance, according to the lawsuit, filed on April 26, 2016, in the U.S. District Court in the Central District of California. When Epstein learned Trump had taken Johnson's virginity, he allegedly attempted to strike her about the head with his closed fists, furious that he had lost the opportunity. Trump, he said, did not take part in Epstein's orgies. He liked to watch while 13-year-old Kate Johnson gave him a handjob. Johnson said Epstein and Trump threatened to harm her and her family if she spoke of their encounters. The lawsuit was dropped, most probably by way of a lucrative settlement. She has since disappeared. Dictators are not content with silencing their critics and opponents. They take sadistic delight in humiliating, ridiculing, and destroying them. "For my friends, everything. For my enemies, the law," Oscar R. Benavides, the authoritarian president of Peru, said, summing up the credo of all dictators. The law is weaponized as an instrument of revenge. Innocence and guilt are irrelevant. The Justice Department's indictment of former Trump advisor John Bolton, New York Attorney General Letitia James, and former FBI Director James Comey, and the subpoenas served to former CIA Director John Brennan, former FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok, and former FBI lawyer Lisa Page, send the core message of all dictatorships: collaborate or be persecuted. This culture of vengeance calcifies civic and political life. Dictators vainly seek what they cannot achieve: immortality. They flood their countries with images of themselves to ward off death. Trujillo had the capital Santo Domingo renamed Ciudad Trujillo, and the island's highest mountain, Pico Duarte, renamed Pico Trujillo. Trump wants the proposed Washington Commanders' $3.7 billion stadium to be named after himself. The Treasury Department has released draft designs for a commemorative $1 coin, featuring Trump's face on both sides, to celebrate the nation's 250th anniversary. There are plans to name the Kennedy Center's Opera House after the First Lady. The $40 million that Amazon paid for the rights to film a documentary about Melania Trump will no doubt replicate the fawning coverage given to Elena Ceausescu, known as the Mother of the Nation, on Romanian state television during the reign of her husband, Nicolae Ceausescu. Huge, expensive banners with El Presidente Trump's face adorn the exterior of federal buildings in the capital. This, along with the various Trump towers throughout the world, is just the beginning. Flood the world with Trump portraits, emblazon his name on buildings and public squares, pay ceaseless homage to his divinity and genius, and death is held at bay. Mario Vargas Llosa writes in The Feast of the Goat how dictatorships turn everyone into accomplices. The rich, too, if they wanted to go on being rich, had to ally themselves with the chief, sell him part of their businesses or buy part of his, and contribute in this way to his greatness and power. With half-closed eyes, lulled by the gentle sound of the sea, he thought of what a perverse system Trujillo created, one in which all Dominicans, sooner or later, took part as accomplices. A system which only exiles, not always, and the dead could escape. In this country, in one way or another, everyone had been, was, or would be part of the regime. The worst thing that can happen to a Dominican is to be intelligent or competent. He had once heard Agustin Cabral say, "A very intelligent and competent Dominican," he told himself, and the words had been etched in his mind. Because sooner or later, Trujillo will call upon him to serve the regime or his person, and when he calls, one is not permitted to say no. He was proof of this truth. It never occurred to him to put up the slightest resistance to his appointments. As Estrella Sadhala always said, the goat had taken from people the sacred attribute given to them by God, their free will. That was America is a Banana Republic, written by Chris Hedges, read by Eunice Wong. For the Chris Hedges Report, chrishedges.substack.com.